in 91, so that was...
I remember mine specifically. It was a 100 megahertz Celeron, empty box. Micro Center announced free computers for everyone if you signed up for 2 years of internet. The line was wrapped around the building of people buying 100 megahertz Celerons that were empty with 4 gig hard drives. That was my first PC. Then I got home, hit the dial-up, and it was busy signal. I was like, PCs suck. I was like, so it was like, this is the worst experience. And then, you got the old famous, din, 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 din. Oh, I didn't want to see that back. If you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
So,
CryptoSlo, cryptocurrency news and investing.
CryptoSlo with more crypto gains. What's going on, guys? Special guest today. I have my friend and long-term commandant, Phorkus, which I have known since high school. I really find that he's an interesting person because he's been into computers and programming ever since basically it existed. So kind of sitting here at his office, checking things out. Of course, he's got a super pimped out setup, big monitors and all kinds of stuff, and I have no idea what he's doing. So, it's partially top secret. So let's start. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Phorkus. When did you get your first computer?
So my first computer was actually a response to my ADHD as a child. So probably about 7 or 8 years old, my mom said, hey, you know what, we've got to give him something to do at night so he doesn't wreck the place while we're asleep. Because I would wake up in the night and do things,
Was this before the VIC-20?
So this is right about the time the VIC-20 was released, because that's what they got me. So they got me this.
You got the VIC-20 with 5K.
Yeah, 4K.
4K, but it was only 2 and 3 though, right? You only had 3K usable?
Something like that, yeah, because there was an overlap region in IO. I mean, you're
And then you played Gorf and wanted to upgrade to the Commodore 64 within a week?
It was the... so this is like before the Commodore 64 even existed, right? Before the Canal brothers had done their tricks. So this was about, I guess, 1980, 1981, something there. And, so got a VIC-20, played Adventureland.
Were you actually programming the VIC-20?
So...
First programming language.
So first programming language was BASIC.
It was BASIC,
of course.
Okay.
But
the loop.
It was...
Yeah.
But that was kind of more of a means to an end, because I couldn't figure out how to get past the lava in Adventureland. So I tried to figure out how to take it apart to see how it worked, because that was kind of my thing, right? So I take the cartridge apart, and there's this piece of stiff felt with a cockroach with metal legs glued onto the thing. And I'm like, yeah, that looks like, I don't know what the fuck that is. All right, so I put that back together, and then went to the library and got a book on computers, and started realizing that when I type in SYS 3072 or whatever it was, it jumps to a location in the computer's memory and starts executing machine code. And so I went and got the book on the 6502 processor and started to try to figure out how to take apart the software.
Machine language on a VIC-20.
Yeah, 6502 processor.
See, I played Gorf, and I wanted to upgrade so I could play more video games.
Right. Well, so my parents were very clear on we're not buying any more cartridges, so get over that. And they're wonderful people, but they were really pretty cheap, if you know what I'm saying. So I kind of had to make do with what I had. And
so you actually rocked the VIC-20 for a while.
Yeah. I was rocking the VIC-20 for a couple of years, and I wrote my first reverse engineering tool to take this cartridge apart probably about the time I was 10, so sometime in my 10th year. So I think 3rd grade.
Wow.
And
so when did the 64 step on site?
64 came on site a couple of years after that. I guess 1983, 84.
Okay.
And I also got my first modem then, and got into trouble with that, of course.
The bulletin boards.
Yeah.
Getting games to work with the parameter disk, Jumpman,
right.
All that stuff. Zork.
Everybody
remembers Zork. Zork 1, 2, and 3. There's an old man in the room. What do you do? Do you? And then those late nights where I would come over and
it's dark. You've been eaten by a guru.
You would overclock the chips.
Oh, the Amiga
for the game.
Yeah,
what was it? Bulldog. What was the game? It was like a fighter game with upgrades.
Yeah. And
one night I stayed over till like 3 or 4 in the morning. When I got home, my dad asked me if I'd been drinking. That was high school.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what you were doing in the basement down there. I had a 64 at the time,
right?
And I was just playing games.
Well, so that game was on the Amiga, actually. So
that was the Amiga. So
the Commodore 64 to the Amiga.
See,
and I literally worked like all summer long to get enough money to buy an Amiga 2000, which was amazing for for the time, right?
And you didn't really hear much about it. See, I got into getting the Computer Gazette, typing the video games for 10 hours of typing to program your own video game on the 64.
Yep.
Someone else's code.
Somebody else's code, right? I know what you mean.
And one time we didn't hit save, and we had 10 hours of typing, and I went to plug in the joystick, and I pulled the power cord out. My brother about killed me. And that was a Computer Gazette. And then I went to Apple IIe camp.
Right.
And then I kind of lost touch with you.
Well,
because you were in Amiga land.
Yeah, I was in Amiga land, kind of doing Amiga things and like hanging out with these strange Finnish dudes.
Did you ever go to Apple?
Yeah, eventually I ended up getting a Macintosh. So
you jumped over to the Apple IIe.
It was a Quadra 650. Yeah, so it was a 68030 based Mac. Went straight from the Amiga to the Mac.
Okay.
And I also, about that time, bought myself a Next computer. So Steve Jobs' other company. Yeah, Next.
Was that above the ColecoVision Atom?
Big black cube. This ominous big black cube. And it was actually used by the NSA to do all their stuff because it had a magnesium shell, and therefore they decided it was EMP proof, which may or may not have actually been the case, but
that's pretty cool. So when you went to coding on the Amiga before you got that other one, was it still the same language, or were you programming machine language at that time?
So it was kind of a combination. So like the Amiga was mostly in C and 68,000 assembly.
C was on Amiga?
Yeah, C language. So
that early on?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, C was actually invented, I guess, in 1973 by Dennis Kernighan and Brian Ritchie.
Who was the driver of the Amiga? Was it IBM?
No, it was Commodore.
It was still Commodore.
Still
So what was the demise of Commodore then?
Terrible business practices.
in the PC. So you're onto the Apple, but what do you program on an Apple?
Oh, on the Macintosh? On the Mac?
Yeah,
that was all in C language.
That was C as well.
Yeah,
C's been around.
Yeah, since 1973.
Since forever. Okay, since forever. So then, basically, that's when you had the divergence of people beginning to program and create layers. They would create a sublayer using the C and create a new language. But the underlying language was C. Because there's a lot of languages like that now, isn't there?
So C,
or is that
C
all
became
machine?
C++.
Okay.
And a guy by the name of Bjarne Strostrup, I think I'm saying that right. He invented kind of an object-oriented layer above C language, which initially was...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so when does Linux come into the picture? Or has it been around the whole time?
1991.
That late?
Yeah. So
they stripped all the GUI away. Someone said, hey, let's get rid of all the graphics.
So think of it more as building it up from the ground up, right? So there's... you have the assembly language layer, right? So that's the basic...
pushes and pops.
Yeah, pushes and pops.
Yeah.
And
horrible. I hated that stuff. I got an F in that class of dry. I failed it. I had to take it twice. I was horrible at machine language.
Yeah, I had to spend a lot of time learning that too. It's not trivial.
Well, it's just hard to map because the idea is to take the machine language and build a library so that you can reuse the library instead of reinventing the wheel every single time that you try to do something.
Right. And
to move something from one register to the next.
I have to put a shout out to Spontaneous Assembly. It was a library that I bought for I think $130 or whatever back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And it was x86, pure x86 assembly, and it was crazy fast. And so I was able to use that to actually do some of my own assembly programs, and it didn't suck. So
okay, so where are we at now on the timeline with you in high school? You graduated in 91 with me.
So graduated in 91. went to college, got involved with Linux.
Okay, so right there, you're in college.
Yeah.
Linux pops out?
Yeah, so Linux shows up the Slackware 0.8 distribution.
Okay.
And that shows up, I guess, maybe around December of 1991.
Okay.
So just before 1992. And of course, it's nothing like what it was today. And it's, it was on 14 floppy disks. And I had a 386 that I loaded this thing onto because the 386 was the first one that had a memory management unit and could actually run protected process space.
Right.
Which, we take for granted now with all of the Windows, systems and Macs and everything else out there.
So you are now freshman year, Ohio State, doing some Linux stuff, going to classes like the normie.
Right.
Right? And what was your original degree?
Originally, I think I was actually there for like pre-med. So I took like biochem and a bunch of other stuff.
Okay.
But then computer sciences were more interesting to me. And there were parts of the pre-med program that I didn't do great at. So
pre-medicine?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're going to be a doctor?
The pre-med. Like
the generals and stuff like that.
Chemistry, organic chemistry, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so how far do you make it at Ohio State?
I'm there off and on for like 5 years.
So you're probably hanging out in dark rooms with buddies and hacking all night, doing fun stuff.
There may have been some of that. Yeah.
Gaming.
There may have been
doing fun stuff. Yeah, I know. I've been to college 2 or 3 times. So, yeah, okay. So what ends Ohio State?
So I got the offer to go write video games full time. And
I remember that.
Yeah.
For
3DO.
3DO!
Yeah, 3DO.
Oh my gosh, Need for Speed 2. That was literally because you guys were so close to
oh yeah.
The 3DO was so above everybody.
It was ahead of its time. And so the 2 guys that did the chipset in the library, I've actually met one of them in person at this point, which is kind of cool because you get to meet your heroes as you get older. And he's still as brilliant a dude as ever.
How many years on this video game?
How many years did I spend on it?
Yeah.
I spent about 5 years all said writing video games. So 3DO, PlayStation 1, PC when the 3DFX card came out.
Wow.
That kind of stuff. So we had some pretty fun projects over the years, and I think for legal reasons I'm not allowed to actually mention any of them, but suffice to say.
So you're out of college. You move back home, or you're just living in the locale in Cebus,
living in Columbus,
and working.
Although I had moved to Las Vegas to do a startup, and then from there on to Los Angeles, where I lived.
So are we at 2000 yet? Where were you in the internet boom? What were you doing?
So I was actually
everything was blowing up, going crazy,
installing T3s, T1s.
What?
Yeah, out in Los Angeles.
Even though you had all that coding history.
Yeah, I mean it paid better.
It paid better.
So and of course I had a new
because everyone was on the money. Everyone was on the money train with the internet.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched the Nat Geo special that talks about Internet Explorer versus Netscape, and it's kind of the story of the battle between them, and the basically they said the bigger the party, the bigger the scam, and it was like all these ICOs with the internet. Basically the ICOs would promise all this technology and then they wouldn't deliver.
Yeah.
And then they raised all the money, because similar to what's happened with cryptocurrency in 17 and 18 with the ICOs.
Yeah.
We're going to revolutionize everything. Give us your money. And then they didn't do anything.
Yeah, so they have big ideas. They write some of them down, and then they get investors, and then it falls on its face.
So
there's no actual plan.
You were installing internet connections.
Yeah.
During the most profitable.
So not necessarily. So after
I understand that's mega. Yeah. 2000 it started to crash.
Yeah, but the thing is, so in '99, I was actually writing banking applications.
Oh wow!
So I was writing banking applications.
Now Linux.
Some, yeah.
Okay.
But then afterwards, I got pulled over to some.
So are you on a PC? Let's jump back a little bit. Yeah. When did you get your first PC?
I mean, I had that in '91, so that was.
I remember mine specifically. It was a 100 megahertz Celeron, empty box. Micro Center announced free computers for everyone if you signed up for 2 years of internet. The line was wrapped around the building. of people buying 100 megahertz Celerons that were empty with 4 gig hard drives. That was my first PC. Then I got home, hit the dial up, and it was busy signal. I was like, PCs suck. I was like, so it was like, this is the worst experience. And then, you know, you got the old famous din, 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 din. Oh, I didn't want to see that back. If you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
So
I had friends that would send the shock.
But you were dialing up. You were dialing up in high school.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing is a lot of people, a household couldn't afford a computer until 10 or 15 years later.
Yeah.
And now a lot of people don't even, like, unless it's business, a lot of people don't have a computer because they have their phones. So it's a handheld computer. So, not taking away from your story, your first PC, what was the specs? If you can't remember the specs, I'm going to be disappointed.
It was 4 megabytes of memory.
4 megs. That's not bad.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. 386 SX, 16 megahertz, and I think maybe an 80 meg hard drive, maybe an.
Okay. What year was this?
91.
91. Yeah. So you got your PC and your monitor. How big was your monitor? 13?
Like 12 inches.
12 inches.
Tiny little monitor.
All right. Well, hey guys, this has been the history of computing with my friend Phorkus. And we're going to have a part 2 on this because he's got to go. He's got some things to take care of. But I want to thank him for showing up on my channel. And we'll be back sometime soon for part 2. Thanks for watching. This is CryptoSlo. If you're not talking gains, then we're not talking.